And Jimmy from Forest Hills, Queens. You got a question recently on one of your live streams about great babyface turns in wrestling and thought, since people always talk about great heel turns, I wondered if you had a list of your favorite babyface turns. So that's a good one, and I do. I jotted down the ones that would be on my list. So I can only rank the top three. So let me do those first. I got to go with the Steve Austin Bret Hart double turn at WrestleMania 13. That one is just iconic. And the impact that it had outweighs any of the other ones on this list. Like, I can't think of a cooler way to turn babyface either. By just being a tough son of a bitch who refuses to quit and has blood pouring down your face. Like, it doesn't get any cooler than that. The next one would be Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18 against The Rock. And really, the fans turned him babyface. Yeah, but then he did the respectful thing, and he shook hands with The Rock after The Rock beat him. But that Hulk up in the middle of the match, it is just such a great classic moment. And 2 5-star matches, by the way. I consider the Austin Bret match and the Rock Hogan match 2 very different matches, but in my book, they're 5 stars all the way. And they both yielded the 2 greatest babyface turns of all time. And then third, I have Macho Man Randy Savage at WrestleMania 7 after his match with the Ultimate Warrior. It was a career-ending match, which, I mean, fucking LOL, I know. But, the Warrior beats him. Savage is left laying there. Sherry is livid. Right? The woman is beside herself. She just lost her meal ticket. And she just starts kicking the shit out of Savage. All the while, they cut to a shot of Elizabeth, his former love, sitting in the audience watching all of this play out until she can take no more. And she hops the barricade, and she rushes the ring, and she throws Sherry out of the ring. And Savage gets up. He almost strikes her because he didn't know it was her in the ring, and then they lock eyes. And Savage doesn't know what to do. And when they finally embrace, I mean, you had people crying in the crowd, right? Either that or their shoes were too tight, as Bobby Heenan said. But then Savage puts Elizabeth up on his shoulders, and then he holds the ropes open for her, which he always made her do for him. And he exits the ring the hero. After walking into that arena being booed, he is cheered on his way out. That is how you do a babyface turn. One of the greatest of all time. And honestly, you can flip the order for any of those 3, and I wouldn't even argue it, as long as they're in the top 3. After that, you could put them, I'm going to give you some more. Put these in whatever order you want. Maybe they're in your top 3. But I've got the old Stone Cold returning on Raw before the Invasion pay-per-view in 2001. Now, it lasted less than a week, and it turned out to be a hoax. But man, I mean, in that moment, it was one of the all-time great, just like cool turns. Like, it was just such a badass moment. Sami Zayn at the Royal Rumble in 2023, putting that chair right in the back of Roman Reigns and finally breaking free of the bloodline. That deserves to be on the list. Mr. Perfect on Primetime Wrestling in 1992, accepting Randy Savage's invitation to be his tag team partner at Survivor Series against Ric Flair and Razor Ramon. Right, and pouring a pitcher of water over Bobby Heenan's head. That was a show-long angle, too, because Perfect hadn't wrestled a match in over a year. He had been out with the back injury and collecting that sweet Lloyd's of London money, probably. But like, he and Bobby were still together, and they're on that panel. That's when Primetime was a studio show with Vince at the head of the table, and then they had 4 guests. So like, you had Perfect and Bobby on one side of the table. Those are the heels, right? It's the heel side. And it just builds throughout the entire show where, you have Savage via satellite. If you remember the setup to this, the reason they even had to do this angle in the first place, there was no build up to this at all. And the reason is they fired the Ultimate Warrior and they needed a replacement in a pinch. So they decided to turn Curt Hennig babyface. And it started with the Savage proposal, and, Heenan's laughing it off like he's never going to accept that, right? But he starts making these comments that are really offending Mr. Perfect until finally Perfect just grabs Heenan and, again, pours water on his head. And he says, you know what, Savage, I will accept. I am going to be your tag team partner. And it was just this great, even though there was no buildup, it's just this great this great turn, this very memorable turn. I got to throw Daniel Bryan in there from Raw in 2014. Daniel Bryan sheds the skin of the Wyatt family after the cage match that night. It was Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt against the Usos. And I cannot say enough good things about this. Just what an awesome, awesome segment that was. The crowd was electric for it. I'm trying to remember where they were that night. I want to say it might have been Providence. Might have been Rhode Island. I don't remember exactly. But, man, the crowd was on fire for it. And, you know, it's stretching it a bit because this was in the middle of the Yes movement. The fans already liked Bryan. It's not like he was like a real heel. He was sort of just under the spell of the Wyatts. And then he finally broke free. He finally woke up. So was it really a babyface turn? I don't know. He was aligned with the heel faction, though, so I'm calling it a babyface turn. Whatever it was, it's one of the greatest segments in Raw history. Nikita Koloff, my God, this has to be near the top. One of the all-time great babyface turns was Nikita Koloff coming to the aid of Dusty Rhodes, coming out to the ring with Dusty to tag with Dusty against the Horsemen. This was in Jim Crockett Promotions. It was supposed to be Dusty and Magnum TA, but this is around the time that Magnum had the car accident that ended his career. They needed a replacement. And Nikita was the giant Russian heel. He was the kind of prototypical foreign menace heel. So seeing him walk out arm in arm with Dusty, like the shock of it and the pop that it got was just unreal. And the explanation they went with was Nikita explaining that after all the wars that he and Magnum had, he had gained a measure of respect for him that he felt he had to pay back. So that worked. I thought that was a pretty good explanation for it. Again, they had to come up with something. And Nikita was the guy, and it worked. Just such a great angle. I wasn't even watching Jim Crockett Promotions at the time, and I was very young when the angle happened, but being able to go back and watch it and what built up to it, what came out of it, makes me wish I was a fan of the product at that time so I could have enjoyed it in real time and been a little bit older. The Batista thumbs down in 2005 is another great turn. He won the Royal Rumble. He had a decision to make about which champion he would be challenging at WrestleMania. Triple H and Ric Flair, they tried to steer him away from them as much as possible. And Batista gave the thumbs down on which contract he was going to sign and chose Triple H. And that was the end of Batista in Evolution and the beginning of his big babyface push. And I'll throw one more in there. This is a personal favorite of mine. It may not have the impact of the Austin turn. It may not be as memorable as Batista or Nikita, but Virgil turning on the $1 Million Man at the Royal Rumble in 1991. That was a great angle. And it had been building for years. You talk about long-term storytelling here. Virgil was Ted DiBiase's manservant, basically, his bodyguard. And DiBiase would talk down to him and mistreat him. And finally, it came to a head at the Royal Rumble. It was DiBiase and Virgil as a tag team against Dusty and Dustin Rhodes. The same Dustin Rhodes, by the way, who won the TNT Championship last month. Like, holy shit. He's been around for a while. But Dusty and Dustin, they were on their way out. They lost the match. Not before Virgil nailed DiBiase by accident. But they won the match anyway. And then after the match, DiBiase's not happy. He gets on the mic and he calls Virgil stupid. You know, need I remind you about your family, about your mother and how I found you and everything I did for you. Basically, I brought you up to where you are today. Now, wrap that $1 Million belt around my waist. And Virgil is just having this crisis of conscience until finally he wrapped it around him all right. He walloped DiBiase upside the head with the belt. And man, the reaction, it was a thing of beauty. Like, they got the reaction that they were looking for. And Virgil was a free man. And a babyface. Great stuff. And I like their SummerSlam match, too, when Virgil won the $1 Million belt. So those are my favorite, and in my opinion, the best babyface turns in wrestling. Feel free to chime in if there's any I missed, or where you would rank some of those, or if you have other ones you want to throw in there. Rahan from Hanover, Germany. We know John Cena was injured just before his last man standing match against Randy Orton at No Mercy in 2007. Was the plan for Cena to retain the title or lose to Randy Orton? Also, if Cena had not gotten injured, how would things have gone for him heading into WrestleMania 24? I don't think it's ever been stated with any sort of clarity what was supposed to happen. They may not have even had that confirmed before the injury happened. But I think what I think would have happened, I think Orton would have won the championship that night anyway from Cena. Cena had been the champion for over a year by that point. Something like 13, 14 months. And they could have had him, some shenanigans, and he would have been able to lose without being pinned in a last man standing match. So Orton wins the title. Now, I know for a fact that Jeff Hardy was scheduled to win Money in the Bank at WrestleMania the following year. That's when they were still doing the Money in the Bank ladder matches at WrestleMania. I think his brother on his podcast some years ago confirmed that the plan was for Jeff, or at least that's what Jeff was told, that he was going to win Money in the Bank before he got suspended on a wellness violation, and that went down the drain. Honestly, I think that if they follow through on that plan, if Jeff wins Money in the Bank at WrestleMania, I think we still get the triple threat match that night that we got with John Cena, Randy Orton, and Triple H. And maybe they even close the show with it instead of closing with Undertaker and Edge. And Jeff Hardy, after winning Money in the Bank earlier in the night, Jeff Hardy cashes in on Randy Orton after Randy Orton retains. So Orton wins the triple threat. Jeff Hardy comes out. He cashes in Money in the Bank, wins the championship to close out WrestleMania 24. And Jeff Hardy, not Seth Rollins, becomes the first person to ever cash in their contract at WrestleMania. That's what I think would have happened.